So you want to learn how to make realistic interiors in Roblox Studio. Well, in this video, we will be going over how to create the props, set up the scene, and master the lighting, so you can turn your builds from this into this in no time. Before you begin any project, you should compile a few references. So I went on Unsplash and just searched up interior, and found a couple of images that inspired me, particularly this one. Also, I would recommend using PureRef to compile all of these images easily. Once I have the concept of what I want to build, I begin blocking out the main shapes and objects with simple parts. This will help with the sizing of the build, and can help with cohesion later on. Remember, blockouts don't need to be that detailed, and shouldn't take too long. You could also add some basic materials to help visualize the scene. Once I have the basic layout completed, I'll start compiling the objects for the scene. You can either model them yourself, or you can download them on different 3D websites. If you find a good model in the Roblox toolbox, you can use that too. I started off by modeling the main objects myself, so I could get a more exact result. This did take a considerable amount of time though. Now is also a good time to refine the room shape and make a somewhat final layout. For objects that you modeled, you can either texture them yourself or add a PBR material variant to them. I recommend finding these materials on Ambient CG or Polyhaven. At this point, I'll begin to work on the lighting. I start by tweaking the default lighting settings, and this is what I used in the end. Then I add in some effects, such as a bloom and color correction. Adding a little bit of tint and contrast and color correction can make the builds look so much better. Also, for a quick tip, you can add clouds and terrain and increase the cover and density to create much softer shadows. Combining this with a regular light shadow property can get interesting results. Now unfortunately, the regular Roblox lighting isn't that powerful, so it needs some assistance to get great looking results. So I added a lot of parts with spotlights, all orientated and positioned slightly differently. Make sure the shadows are enabled, and these are the settings I used for most of the lights. This will create more interesting shadows and adds more depth to the scene. It's also important to add light to the scene where it would logically be emitted, such as that lamp in the corner. Instead of adding a singular regular point light, I add in several point and spotlights to create a nice looking balance and fall off. Next, I add in a bunch of smaller random objects to help populate the scene and make it feel more full. All of these models came from online 3D stores, particularly from Sketchfab, all for free by the way. Also, when you're downloading models, make sure to optimize them so the game isn't needlessly laggy. However, since this is just a single room showcase, I just left the models alone. Now a lot of these objects were not in my reference, but it's okay to take artistic liberty sometimes. And adding more objects and detail is a great way to add more realism. Now we need to work on the shadows. Because Roblox doesn't have advanced shadows and bounce lighting, we have to do some manually. To make custom shadows, just search gradient in the toolbox and grab a white gradient. Use circle gradients for objects and normal line gradients for walls. Put the decal on an object and make sure the object's transparent. Then make sure the decal is a dark color and increase or decrease the transparency accordingly. After that, simply place the shadow where it would logically go. Make sure to account where the light is casting from. Using good references will help a lot in this. Now, I will start by adding the wall, ceiling, and floor shadows. For this, I basically just put it in the corners and the creases. Then I work on the object shadows, for which I just place the decals under the objects. Make sure to stretch it to fit the light. Now for tables and such, I put a decal under the main object. Then I place shadows under each leg. For square objects, such as the paintings or TV, you can search up square glow and use that as a decal image. The last thing I add is a simple volumetric type light, which really is just a light beam with these settings. If you want me to do a full tutorial on the different types of light beams, let me know. So that's how I turned this Roblox scene into this. It would help a ton if you subscribed or liked this video if it actually helped you. Make sure to comment any questions or video ideas you have. Goodbye now.